Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB.
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it!
Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. Thanks a lot for joining us here on this Monday. It is August 28th. Coming to you, of course, live from high atop the Golf Club at the Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for John, the producer, getting us going, getting us started. And thanks a lot for you joining us and being here. Big program on tap today. We start the official beginning of college football. The college football season has begun. I know that college zero or week zero rather kind of started, but not really. So it starts this week. It's week one of college football. Don Fischer's going to be here. So the sports season is officially underway. Dustin and Dopirak will be along as well from the Indy Star. Lots to talk about. Nebraska will kick things off for the Big Ten this week as they get started on Thursday. Some rule changes that you may not know about. And some of the games that are on tap this week. We'll talk about those as well. How's everybody doing? Appreciate you, Mike, jumping on. The Cubs are going, man. Brian, 5 lefts, Ross, Tanis, John, Brian, Kent, Dwayne, Fred. Speaking of the Cubbies, how well are they doing exactly? I have not looked because my Reds have just fell into the tank. Oh, how about the Little League World Series? We'll talk about that. Someone wins with a walk-off, Tampa Bay and New York. Did you ever think that one of these days you'd say one team is dissing on another one because they're just a last-place team? Would you have ever thought that was the last-place team would be the Yankees? Wow, hard to believe, but that is the truth. Let's see. Where are we in Major League Baseball? Let's get the standings to see exactly where. Oh, man, come on. Oh, there we go. National League. What are the Cubbies doing? They're hanging in there. 4 back, though. That's tough. But they're hanging in the wild card race. What? Yeah, they are. They're tied. They're tied for the wild card race. How about that? Well, no, I was tied for second in the wild card race. So, yeah, go on, Cubs. Hey, I've got no problem with them. It's not going to be Cincinnati, who, although they are 6 games back in the division now, they are just a game behind the Cubs. So they got a shot still. Just don't give up on the Reds just yet. One thing that has not happened all season, the run differential. Milwaukee finally 19 runs over 500 for the year. That's crazy. That they're leading a division and they're only 19 runs. They only have a 19-run differential, as compared to, say, Atlanta, who has a 219-run differential. Holy cow. Atlanta has scored 200 more runs. Oh, my gosh. That's jaw-dropping. John Boy, who's your team? Yeah, there's nobody that's scored the runs like they have. Holy smokes.
I've never really had an allegiance to an MLB team, but when Kyle Schwarber was with the Cubs team that won the World Series, I was a little invested in that.
Oh, the Brewers starting today at Chicago. That's a big series, man. Huge. Well, it's huge for both of them because not only the Cubs, they got a nice grab onto a playoff spot right now for a wild card, but they can make some noise in the divisional race as well. NFL waiver wire season. Who's on the move? Not me, baby. Staying here. Oh, your poor St. Louis Cardinals. Yeah. The Cubs are at the Reds this weekend. Holy moly. There's another important series. Looking forward to that. Week 1 is here in college football. What game are you looking forward to seeing? Of course, Indiana will be hosting the Ohio State Buckeyes. Just a little old team just east of here. Looking forward to talking to Don Fischer today. Don back on the program for the first time in a while. Dustin Dopirak on as well. Nebraska, like I said, will kick off things in the Big Ten on this Thursday as they will travel to Minneapolis to take on Minnesota. I didn't even see the score. What was the score of the USC game? Because I think it was blacked out where I was, but it was late. I didn't care.
USC, the other game, they doubled up San Jose State, 56-28.
Yeah, not a big surprise. There was not a good game. I mean, last year they opened up with Nebraska and Northwestern in Ireland, which, and it was a good game. This year you've got Ireland. You've got Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, and it wasn't even that was another butt whipping. Why have week 0 if you're not going to have good games? Why have it at all? Why is there a week 0? I really don't. I know why. It's an opportunity to make just that little bit of extra money. But 7 games? Who cares about 7 games, especially if they're not good games? I couldn't have been bothered. Only reason I saw Notre Dame because it was on TV someplace where I was. Yeah, that's a waste. This week won't be. All about the money. You got that right, Robert. It's all about the money. The Fighting Vern Gagneys of Minnesota. There you go. So, what game are you looking forward to this week? Arizona State self-imposing a ban on themselves for a little trouble that they got into. Some violations as they head into the Big 12. But how about the Little League World Series? California's El Segundo. Hey, dummy. Every time I think of El Segundo, I think of Sanford and Son. He got back down there in El Segundo. But El Segundo, California's El Segundo team is brought home the Little League World Series championship title after a 6-5 win over the team from Willemstad, Caraco on Sunday. Thrilling game ended with a walk-off home run from Luis Lappe, who was given a perfect setup from the booth by ESPN Carl Ravitch. I don't have that for you to play. I have to get John to play it. But John, if you can pull that up, it's U Stadium.
What is it we're looking up? I don't even know the context right now. What is this?
Little League World Series. The walk-off home run.
We're not getting copyrighted. We can just talk about it. We're fine.
Okay. Well, it's everywhere else, but California has been in the championship game 24 times now. That's its 8th title. So another one for the American League, for the Americans. But wow, what a way to win. Can you imagine that, winning the Little League World Series with a walk-off? Very, very cool. So there's that. And how about Jonathan Taylor? What's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor? Texas names C.J. Stroud as their week 1 starter after getting a win. So there's one starter we know. Who was Indiana starting? Well, that you don't know, but one thing you will know, and I look forward to talking to Don about this, is beginning this year, the Big Ten is requiring that all teams provide what's called an availability report at least 2 hours prior to any and every game. The Big Ten is the first conference to do this. It's something similar to along the lines of what the NFL does with their injury report because of gambling. People want to know who the hell's playing and who's not playing. If their starting quarterback's not playing, I'm not betting on them. That's basically what that's about. And so I'm surprised that I'm surprised as we see more and more relationships with wagering that more conferences, especially at least the large conference like the SEC and the Big 12, would follow suit. We'll shall see. Five Lefts, yes, he may have lived in Watts, but he was always talking about sending somebody or getting something down in El Segundo. Let's see. Jesse says Freifogel looked good with the Chiefs this weekend. Good team to be with. He's gonna make himself an NFL career, Ty Freifogel. Indiana needs some more players like that this year as they kick off their season this weekend against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Hopefully they can come out of that injury-free. Point spread, last I heard, around 29.5. And I think it's time to take a break. And we got to stay on time. Don Fischer joining us today. Looking forward to it. How is everybody doing? Hope you're having a great one, a great start to your week. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. God, I feel like I need to re-record those. I'm still getting back to my normal voice, and those sound like I was freaking struggling.
They just sound different.
Well, it's from the new microphone, but it's when I hear it back, I'm like, it just sounds like, ugh.
I don't like
tell I'm
anything
struggling because I'm
like
at 90% right now.
I don't like anything I do. Everything I sent to you, I didn't listen to it because I'm like, I would hate it and I would sit there and it'll take me 6 hours.
Now, I'm not that self-deprecating, but I know that those can sound better what I did. I'm just pissed that I've had a less than ideal voice for nearly a week now. So I may end up re-recording those ins and outs. They just sound so wimpy compared to how they used to sound. The other ones were perfect, but I had to get rid of them, obviously, because they said Endeavor Hospitality. All right, where is Stereo Chop Shop?
Inside Indiana football.
It's a good comparison, Tanis.
What's that?
He says new microphones like seeing yourself in 4K high definition TV.
Oh yeah, I couldn't do that.
It sounds good when you're doing a show, but when you're recording stuff, it's a little different, I guess. But yeah, I hate those ins and outs, but hopefully I can, once my voice gets back to 100%, we'll maybe I'll redo them, because I don't think I can sit here and listen to that every single day.
He's late. He's late. He's
not late. We just hit 9 o'clock.
I'm kidding.
He'll be fine.
I'm kidding.
I did send him a reminder about 10 minutes ago just to make sure he got the email. I didn't hear from him, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't see it. It is the same email, right? It hasn't changed?
Yeah.
That's what I figured. All right, 10 seconds.
Call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, and the first Monday with the man, the myth, the legend, Don Fischer, as he joins us. Don, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Jim. How are you doing?
Good, good. How has the summer been? How's the golf going?
Well, the summer's been great. I played a ton of golf. I played really badly most of the year. Not happy about it. And of course, everybody that plays golf will say the same thing, just not playing all that well. So anyway, I truly have. I played pretty bad this year, but I played probably as much golf as I played in a long time too. So maybe there's a count. Maybe I ought to just play once a week or something. I don't know. All I can tell you is it's not been a great season from a scoring standpoint.
I know for my aspect, I always just try to tell myself I need to just take 2 weeks off and then quit altogether. That's the best thing for me.
Well, I won't ever do that because I love the game that much. I really enjoy it. I think it's one of the I don't know if it's the best game that was ever invented, but it's close.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see you again. Great to talk to you. It's been a long summer, vacation for everyone. But it is time for the sports season. Of course, football unofficially kicked off with week 0, which I don't know what week 0 is all about. It's like calorie-free football, I guess. But this is the official kickoff this week. Not only that, before I forget, remind them again, is this the first week? Do you all start Inside Indiana Football this week, or is it next week you start?
No, we start this Wednesday night. Tom will be on hand. We'll be at the Chop Shop, who's one of your sponsors, and really neat place. It's different. One side of it's a market, and the other side of it's the restaurant, and it's kind of cool. And I've just sampled their breakfast there, but their breakfasts are superb. And I don't know about the rest of their food, but I'm going to get a chance to check that out on Wednesday night.
It's pretty good. Not only that, they've got a full lot of seafood in there, I noticed, man. I'm talking big, full groupers and tuna that's this thick. They've got it all, man. It's crazy.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's a new venue for us. We were at Southern Stone the last few years, and now we're at the Chop Shop. Mike Ross has got, has he got every restaurant in Bloomington now? Or, pretty close, right?
Pretty close. Pretty close. And there's more coming. But Inside Indiana Football, of course, with Tom Allen, hosted by Don Fischer, will be at the Chop Shop this Wednesday, as he said. But coming up to them, we've got the opening week. And, man, I don't know what the Big Ten has against Indiana, but we've talked about it so much ad nauseum now. 5 out of 7 years they've had to open with a Big Ten opponent. 2 of those have been Ohio State. It's just not an easy thing to do. I don't care who you are, but man, you got to do it, and it's on the schedule, and they have to play this game, and they're going to play this game come Saturday, Don.
Yeah, they are. And get ready, because there's no question Ohio State is loaded again, just like they are every year. They have a similar quarterback situation that Indiana has, the exception being the fact that Indiana's two redshirt freshmen that are vying for the quarterback position are much younger than the other two that Ohio State has out there that will offer up a scenario there. So, but it's going to be interesting to see what Tom Allen does. People are always asking me what I think, and I'm saying I watched a lot of practices, and I've certainly saw the scrimmages that they've practiced in this year. There's no question both these guys are very similar. Sorsby's a little bit bigger guy, 6'3", 230. Taven Jackson is 6'3", 215. Jackson, I think both of them are very mobile. Jackson, I think, has got a little bit stronger arm than Brendan Sorsby, but it's not dramatically different. And both of them are smart. I think both of these guys, I think that may be the determining factor as to who Tom decides to play in this ball game, who's going to be the best game manager. Because redshirt freshman, if you're a starter at the Big Ten level, you've got to make sure you don't make a ton of mistakes out there. And I think that's going to be a critical factor as to who Tom decides on. And then can he hold the position because he's making too many mistakes or not? Whoever's making the most mistakes is going to be the guy sitting on the bench. It's that simple.
Yeah, and there's a new rule this year, and now this won't affect this particular situation because by game time, I think we will know who the quarterback is. I'm assuming that. But the Big Ten is implementing a new rule that will require teams to provide an availability report at least 2 hours prior to game time this year. And that is something new. They're the first conference to do it, the only conference doing it right now. But that's kind of like the NFL does. And it just goes back to wagering. So they know who's playing and not playing.
Well,
they ought to call it the Tom Allen rule, I think, in college football.
Well, the gambling rules, gambling changes rules. Let's put it that way. And without question, it's changing them again. And so what you're doing basically is kowtowing to the gambling profession. So, and because it's legal now, I guess it's pretty much legal everywhere at this juncture. They can change the rules, and they do. It's all about money, just like the expansion is all about money. And that's what the Big Ten.
I forgot about that. You're going to enjoy that traveling.
I'm telling you, how many trips will you be making to the West Coast each year? That may be a qualifying factor in my new contract.
That's one we haven't talked about that, Don. I forgot. There's been so much going on with all this change. Yeah, there's going to be more travel. There's good coming with it, and there's bad coming with it. But I would love to have seen it stay the way it was. Everyone probably would have. It kind of cracked me up with Chip Kelly's suggestion that he came out with after all the conferences had already split up. It's like it's a little bit late to suggest that, but it would have been nice to see if they would have split them up by football going off on its own, possibly, and keeping everything else the same. I don't know. It doesn't matter because it's the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Well, exactly. And, as much as I hate it for the Big Ten or from a travel perspective for Big Ten teams, what's it going to be like for those 4 teams on the West Coast? They've got to come east almost every week. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, no longer can you use the term student athlete. You just flat out cannot, because none of this is good for the student athlete. There's just no way that it can be. Now, granted, it's football, it's basketball, whatever sport you're playing, I get all that, but it's not good for the student athlete. And I don't want to hear that term used by any conference again, because from the perspective of the Big Ten, there's no way this is good for the student athlete.
I agree with you. And it's not going to change for the better, I don't see in the future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Is there going to be more teams? Is the Big Ten going to add 2 more to get up to 20? I think that only happens if they can get Notre Dame in. But we'll see. I don't know.
At this juncture, there'll be like 4 conferences now, four Division I conferences, or power conferences, what you want to call power conference.
Well, we're not far from that now.
I know. I mean, Pac-12 was the Pac-12 is gone. So
and the ACC is kind of in trouble. They're not gone, but
yeah, exactly.
It's wild. I mean, you've seen it all happen. You've been covering the sport since it's the Big Ten had 11 teams in it. Actually, when it had 10 in it, right?
Oh, yeah, they only had 10 when I joined Indiana in 73. There were just 10 teams, and that was for a long time. And then all of a sudden, things started to change, and money and TV raised their big, ugly head.
What do you think that's going to do just to the sport itself, Don? I mean, you've seen it. You've seen it as a fan. You've seen the fans throughout these years watching the sports. What does it do to our enjoyment of this?
Well, here's what I do know. Change is inevitable, and we're seeing a big change in college athletics. Is it for the better? I'm not sure that's the case. I don't think it may be, but it's changing. And if you don't evolve with the changes that are made, then you're just not, it's not going to be that much fun. Now, I think a lot of people are scratching their heads at why we've gotten 4 teams from the West Coast that are now part of the Big Ten. But at the same time, we all know it's because of money. It's all about television exposure and the money that brings in. Every year that they turn around, the Big Ten contract with the television is just dramatically exploded. It's giving all these Big Ten teams lots more money than they've ever had before. So I don't see how that changes, or that change is going to ever come back. Like you say, the toothpaste is out of the tube. And whether it's for the best, whether it's going to be more enjoyable or less enjoyable, I can't make that prediction. I just know it's all about money. And at this juncture, we just have to live with it.
That's a fact there. We have our opening football game this weekend, Memorial Stadium. They sent out a survey as well, some upgrades that are going to be needed there. There's going to be things changed with some facilities, I think, eventually. You might eventually get a new press box, Don.
Well, I'd like to see that happen, but I doubt that's going to happen in my lifetime.
I doubt it's going to happen in my lifetime.
Well, I think that could happen, but I won't be doing the games when that happens. I won't be a part of it. So, yeah, they've got a lot of other things they're trying to do at this juncture, and I understand that. You have to keep up with the Joneses. That's part of college athletics these days. The grass is always greener, and if somebody's making moves that upgrade their situation, you've got to do the same thing. So Indiana University is no different than any other school in the country. Yeah,
and Indiana, as far as football, with this growth, with this change, the addition of these additional teams from the Pac-12, Don, Indiana has to make what I call a concerted effort. I mean, they really have to make a concerted effort in the sport of football. There's no way you cannot do that. But back in the 70s, I think, when what I call the Indiana slide happened, it was okay because Bob Knight was really successful in basketball at the time, and that was growing, and football wasn't as important. But now, with the importance that it does have, they're going to have to get to a point of compatibility where they can compete with these teams, not necessarily be at Ohio State, but you've got to be able to reach 6 wins, 7 wins. Have to, I think, in this day and age.
Well, the competition is very difficult, and the fact that you don't have a strong, rich tradition in Indiana in football makes it extremely hard. Yes. And I don't know how you get better. You've got to have a phenomenal coach. You've got to have an ability to recruit. That's the biggest key, I think, these days. And here's the thing. I don't know how good this Indiana football team is going to be this year, but they have 23 transfer portal players in the top 50 that will play this Saturday. That's
Wow.
unbelievable. I mean, if you look at who they are projecting to play this coming Saturday, there are 23 transfer portal players for this year. I'm not talking total because there are other transfer portal guys from last year and so on that are on this roster. But out of the top 50 players, you've got 23 of those guys out of this year's transfer portal that will be playing in this football game Saturday.
I can't even call that substantial because substantial doesn't even begin to properly recognize how big that is. That's mind-boggling. And I can tell that this team seems to be better. It's a better team. I think they're better at positions. I think they're better at defensive back. They're better on each line. They're even better at running back, which is hard to. They had a good running backs room last year, but they seem to be solid everywhere. I just have no idea how good they are. I just don't know what they can do.
Well, here's the start is with Bob Bolstad in the offensive line because we knew that was the weakest part of this program. And Bolstad comes in here from Wisconsin. He has worked these guys mercilessly through the fall practices, the summertime. I don't know how much he did in the summer, but I know the fall practice sessions have been really brutal for these guys, for these offensive linemen. He has really made these guys work their tails off, which they needed to. I mean, there had to be learning that was involved with fundamentals, repetition constantly. I think this guy has done a great job with these guys. How much better they are this year than they were a year ago is yet to be seen. But they've got a veteran group out there. I mean, Mike Kadick, Zach Carpenter, Matthew Bedford's back after sitting out last year. Khalil Benson's been on the roster for a long time. And Joshua Sales, even though he's a redshirt sophomore, this is his third year in the program. So these are guys that have worked their butts off to get better because they knew that they were the weak link on this football team offensively. And I think they have done a great job in that regard. We'll see how it all plays out this Saturday and how it plays out during the non-conference portion of the schedule, because I do think the offensive line is better. I think the wide receiving core is the deepest position on this football team, with Cam Camper being back, Donovan McCulley, obviously, a bunch of new guys. EJ Williams is really special, I think. Omar Cooper has looked great. Addison Colby, of course, has been listed as one of their top receivers for some time now, the last 2 years, I should say. And they've just got a whole bunch. The Keys Carter is a transfer portal guy that's come in also that's made a name for himself. Cameron Perry. I mean, they've got really good wide receivers. I think they've got really good running backs. Josh Henderson now is number one, along with Jalen Lucas in the backfield. They could be 1 and 1A. Christian Turner has come on board from Wake Forest. I haven't seen a lot of him in practices because he suffered some injury problems during the fall camp, but he's supposed to be the real deal. And then you got Trent Howland, who has really looked good out there in the scrimmages I've watched him in. He's a 6'2" guy that's about 240 pounds and a stud that can help you with the inside game. And David Holloman's had the best year he's had on campus in 3 years. So I just think the offense has a lot of tools. The question mark will be at quarterback, and can Taven Jackson and Brendan Sorsby, can one of those guys be the guy, and can they stay healthy? Because let's face it, and not make mistakes, because those two things are going to be critical for the quarterback position, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Looking forward to getting it started. I know you are. Looking forward to seeing you out at the Chop Shop this Wednesday night for the first installment of this season's Inside Indiana Football with Tom Allen, hosted by yours truly, Don Fischer. Looking forward to it, sir.
Jim, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
It's our pleasure, Don. Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Minutes away here from halftime. Taking a look here at Brunson, pump fake.
Morning, Jim.
Pump fake. He pulls it down and puts it in. He scores.
I'm inspired. I'm watching FIBA this morning. So, yeah, that's.
I was like, what the hell's on right now?
FIBA, man. Americans and the Greeks, really. Well, I would say it's really important, but it's a game that I have to care about.
Who they be playing?
They're playing the Greeks.
The Greeks. The Greeks.
Yes, the
The
Greeks.
fighting
so they're
Giannis's?
best. What's that?
The fighting Giannis's?
Not the fight. Well, the fighting Thonases, because Giannis is
okay.
not playing. But the other one is Thonas.
Well, but do they care as much as the mother of embattled Spanish Football Federation president Luis Rubiales?
Oh my God! What are we talking about?
She has locked herself in a church and said she is on a hunger strike in protest of her son's treatment. His cousin confirmed on Monday.
Oh my God!
For real. That is for real.
They get dramatic in Spain. Oh my God! I mean, that guy's gonna get fired. Like, I mean, I don't know what are we even talking about here? Like, that guy's
she has locked herself in a church on a hunger strike.
His
mom.
Oh man, she's fighting this is the wrong hill to die on, man. Don't. Yeah, your son was dumb and he deserves to get in trouble for that. You don't do that. And double down on it. Like, no, you don't kiss your player like against her will on live worldwide television and think this is going to go okay for you and then double down on it. Like, yeah. Take it easy, Mom. You're dying on the wrong hill. He just has to own this one.
Yep.
Like, just nope. That's intense. So yeah, this is. I don't think anyone cares as much about this game as cared about that game, and I don't think anybody cares as much about this.
Hey, Bill, how's Bill doing? From down in Southern Indiana, I haven't seen him on for a hot minute.
But the Americans are up 12. They were up more when Halliburton was on the floor. The second unit's probably their best asset, I think, which is kind of cool to watch. Because they don't have, I mean, like, you know, there's other better players in this tournament. Luka's really good, obviously, but the U.S., I think, has the most depth.
All right, here we go, guys. Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by WOW Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Monday, August 28th, here at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, joined now by our good friend Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Just wrapped it up with Don Fischer. Hadn't seen Don in quite some time.
Means Indiana football is a thing, man.
It's that time.
It has arrived.
It has arrived. Did you know, and because this is a new rule, the Big Ten has instituted that at least 2 hours prior to game times, and someone asked if this is for basketball too, and I've not confirmed that, but I'm going to assume. But they now have to put out a
injury
availability report. Yes, just like the NFL. Well, I'm sure the NBA, all pro leagues require that?
Yes. I think baseball might be a little bit different. But yeah, no, they do. I mean, in the NBA, it is a rolling thing for about 2 days prior. Like every hour on the hour, they put out an injury report. I don't know what the deadline is by which you have to have something. But basically, you go on, like your games kind of go online like a day prior. You get some dispensation if you're playing the night before. Like, you don't have to put your injury report for tomorrow's game if you've got a back-to-back. You don't have to do that until the morning. But yeah, you do have to sort of update that, and then they final inactives are usually what is it, about an hour before, maybe less. I mean, you don't have to do it in the pregame, because you get a pregame press conference, obviously, in the NBA that you don't have in the NFL. And so you don't have to have it then. But usually about 45 minutes, you have to kind of make your final call as to whether a guy's going to be in or going to be out. So that's interesting. I was joking. Mason Williams was joking with me on Twitter about that, because last year, before I got moved over on the beat, I would pull out my binoculars and say, put on Twitter, who's actually playing for Indiana today. So I guess that's not going to be a thing.
I said earlier, they may call that the Tom Allen rule.
They might. They absolutely might. No, I mean, I think, obviously it tells you just obviously how widespread gambling has become and how much of a thing it now is, because that's the driving point behind it, is making sure that there's not an insider information sort of deal. And you had something, regarding that, obviously, in college baseball. I mean, that was sort of I think that was kind of the root, is how they figured out that there was some shady stuff going on. What was it with Alabama, I think? So yeah, no, I mean, I think ultimately it's good. Ultimately makes our lives easier. That we're not sitting there just, looking down with binocular. I mean, you should still be doing that anyway. If you're a beat writer or whatever, like, you should kind of get a sense of who's going where and who's playing quarterback and how's everybody lining up. I mean, that's kind of maybe our most useful part of the day, basically, is when we can actually, add a little bit, I guess, to the experience. But I think it's ultimately good just to take that piece out of it and force, coaches to actually say what they're doing. I don't know. I mean, it's helpful for us long term. It's helpful for the fans to actually know, to get a direct line as to who's playing and who isn't, because I think you just want to know. I mean, beyond just the gamblers, obviously the gamblers care. Certainly, if you're putting any money on anything, you need to know who's actually playing in the game. But if you're a fan, you want to know, okay, what are my team's chances? Who's actually going to play today?
It's a little more above board. Just seems to keep it that way. A little less trickery and et cetera, et cetera. You mentioned in the break watching FIBA basketball as America takes on Greece. Man, how hard is it for these guys to play these summer leagues? Because the NBA season, it's a hard grind. And then these guys that play summer league ball as well, that's got to be a little wearing on
it is. I mean, first, I think it's interesting with this team, and it's been interesting we had a couple opportunities this offseason to catch up with Tyrese Halliburton, because he had the contract extension in July. He signed the contract extension in July, and then we saw him at Summer League. Then we saw him for his camp, and then we saw him for he went up and played up at Dizzy Runs in Noblesville. So got a sense of how he was working it into his basically offseason routine. And I mean, the one thing was, like, he acknowledged to us that he kind of took it easy on purpose leading up to the contract extension. Like, when we talked to him in April when the season's about to end, he said, "Man, I'm going to lift every day. I'm going to be, really try to get a lot out of myself." But like, he acknowledged that leading up to the extension, he took it easy because he was like, "I'm not tweaking an ankle before I got this money coming." Basically, I'm going to put pen to paper before and take it easy on the physical whatnot. And when he played in Dizzy Runs, he was not in great shape, and acknowledged that. Like, he was getting back to it, getting back to game shape. He played pretty well at that, but he wasn't dominant. He was just okay. But I think he's been terrific since they got out there. He went to Vegas not long after that, and it is a grind. I mean, I want to say it was August 3rd. Is when they went out to Vegas, and about a week later, a week and a half, is when they started having these showcase games. So it requires a fair amount of devotion. You don't get done until September 10th, and you got about 3 weeks between that and the start of camp. So it is a bit of a break, but it does keep you going. I mean, it's a long off season if you don't make the playoffs. It really is. I mean, it's short if you do. If you're playing all the way till June, and then you've got something. If you're on a title team, and obviously I don't think anybody on this group did. I don't think there's anybody from Denver or from Miami on this team. But there are some guys that at least made the playoffs. Jalen Brunson from the Knicks, Anthony Edwards from the Timberwolves. A lot of those guys got done by April. But it can be a grind. I remember when LeBron won the title in 2012 and then went and played in the Olympics, and then came back and won another title. It was like, man, this guy has not stopped. I mean, like this is a huge workload, and he also carried that team. That 2012 Olympic team was really the LeBron show. I mean, they were coming off the Redeem team when they were loaded. But like that year, I think it was like him and Durant, and they were kind of like they had good players otherwise, of course, because it's Team USA, but he was really carrying it by himself. This group I think is different. It does add, but they're also these guys are puppies. It's a lot of 26 and under. I mean, I don't know if there's too many guys that are even 25. I mean, Bobby Portis is a little bit older, but that's about it. It's a lot of youth on this team, which is what makes it good. I mean, they come at you and they don't stop. And because, they've got really good second wave. I think Halliburton's second unit might be their most important asset is that they go legit 10 deep, and you're bringing Paolo Banchero off the bench, and he's been terrific. And Tyrese has been terrific, and Austin Reeves is playing really well. And then on top of that, you still got Cam Johnson and Josh Hart, who plays really good defense. I mean, so that's a really, really good second unit, and they're playing pretty well. But like it is something that you want to do when you're 25. It's a lot less of a grind on you than it is when you're 30. Basically. So that's I think a big thing for this group. It's a lot of guys that are 25 or 24 or 23 or 22 or whatever. And that helps. And I mean, Edwards, I think, is probably the best player on the team, and he's 23. So, like that helps that this group's really young.
Absolutely. Looking at college football, that's getting started this week. Did you gain any calories from week 0?
I watched the Irish. I did. MJ's at a bachelorette party in Texas. Corpus Christi is gorgeous. So I was doing a lot of housework and watching a lot of sports this weekend. So did watch the Irish, bust up Navy pretty good out in Dublin. While also watching track was fun this week, plus FIBA, plus a lot of good baseball this week. But I didn't watch a lot after that. So I don't know if any of you guys follow this on Twitter, but I'm not a member of the Sickos committee. I'm not sitting up watching San Diego State and Ohio on week 0 just to get a fix. Didn't do that. But did watch the Irish, and Sam Hartman looks pretty good. Now, I mean, obviously, it's Navy. It's different. I mean, but they defended it pretty well. So, I think a lot of good news for Notre Dame. I don't think that's a title contender because I think there's a different level. There's Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and then there's everybody else. Maybe LSU's up there, maybe Penn State's up there. But you still look at those 4 as being at a different level. But I thought impressive start for Notre Dame. That running game is really good. Hartman looks sharp. They're in a good place, I think, going into this thing.
How Georgia does not, if they don't go undefeated this year, that's a crime. I heard someone talking about their schedule being softer than something, and I just now looked it up, and I'm like, oh my God. Their first 4 games are at home. Then they play Tennessee. They start with Tennessee Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, and UAB, which only had football back for a couple years now. So those are their first 4 games. Then they go to Auburn, which I'll give that toughness for what it usually is. But then you you've got Kentucky and Vanderbilt, Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that's surprisingly weak. I mean, Tennessee's still going to be a problem. I don't know that Georgia's going to have a problem with them. But Tennessee, I think, brings a lot back. I mean, they lost some key players, but I mean, Tennessee's back. Tennessee's a thing now. Heupel's been remarkable. It's kind of the second time in 10 years that they have basically the Tennessee program athletic department has made a ridiculous hire not a ridiculous hire. I don't think Pruitt was ridiculous on paper, but hired a guy who went straight to cheating and just went direct. I guess Tyndall didn't do it there, but Tyndall got busted for Southern Miss, and then made just a stepping in it and coming out smelling like a rose hire. So in basketball it was Rick Barnes after they hired Tyndall, and they could only keep him for a year. Pruitt blows up in their face entirely. Although I still think them losing it over hiring Greg Schiano was justified. But
yes.
Pruitt ends up being a mess. But anyway, because that was just a bad decision on the part of Tennessee athletics. I don't know what they were thinking. That was my in between jobs period, and I had a kind of part-time gig for SEC country, and I was watching UT games out of my living room in Pittsburgh. But so I wrote a couple columns on that. It was just like, why would you get yourself involved in this if you don't have to? It's Shano had just as much connected, had enough connected to him on the Sandusky thing, that it was just like, okay, like you don't need this if it's not your problem. If you're Tennessee, you're not connected to it. He'd already been at Rutgers, it was like, okay, if you hire him back, what's the difference at this point? But if you're Tennessee, you're like, okay, I don't need this at all. Plus, it's like, okay, was Shiano really going to come down from Jersey and go win in Tennessee? Like, that was not going to fly. And but still, Pruitt was a mess. But still, Heupel has been just a revelation. I mean, they play really fun football over there. They're just flinging it. And Joe Milton's got an absolute cannon for an arm. I mean, it's like Tecmo Bowl from, when you drop all the way back to the end zone and throw it 100 yards, that's Joe Milton's arm. So, Tennessee is going to be an issue, but to your point, it is a by and large pretty weak schedule. I mean, Ole Miss is no joke. Usually, they got the running back who's really good, Judson, I think, but I think, and you probably still are looking at Alabama in the SEC title game, and so that's still a thing, But for most of the year, they're going to cruise. They do have to work in a new quarterback. They got a lot of new pieces they've got to figure out there, but they're Georgia, and they're going to just absolutely waste a lot of the teams on that schedule.
I give a ton of credit to Ohio State. They seem to do this year in, year out. They only get 3 non-con games like every team in the Big Ten, as opposed to 4 non-conference games the SEC allows their teams to play. And this year, Ohio State is scheduled to play at Notre Dame as one of their non-con games. While, I just listed off Georgia's the teams that they're playing. I can't even. Georgia Tech was the highest. The rest of them was what? Ball State.
Yeah, that's their annual end of season. Rivalry game. Obviously, they have dispensation from the SEC to play a non-conference game in the last week of a season, and the Hate game is kind of awesome. So I mean, Osterman loves that one. Or it's Hate Week. I don't know. So that's so cool. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you can do a whole lot better than. Let me go back and look at it again to make sure I have it right. UT Martin, Ball State, and UAB. You can do better than that if you're Georgia, and they have in the past. I mean, they have scheduled better. I'm trying to think who they played last year. I mean, Georgia was playing Notre Dame not too long ago. Was it last year or was it 2 years ago? They had a home and home with Notre Dame. So that's not too distant in the past that they played that game. And obviously, it's what's the word I'm looking for here? It happens. I guess. I mean,
I can't say that word.
Right. I didn't.
No, I said I can't say that word.
You have these years when you don't schedule as tough. It's football. It's different. You're scheduling these so many years out in advance.
Well, they used to. I think that's what that scheduling stuff so far out. And because they've proven time and time again that, you really can schedule quickly if you have to. You've just been taking the easy way out.
You can't. I mean, you can schedule way out. It's just a question of everybody wants to have these big non-conference games and tell you like a decade in advance that they're going to happen.
Yeah.
And they're like, obviously, college football is at a different level for circle on your calendar type of stuff, for a bunch of reasons. I think people, they schedule these trips, they schedule their weddings on that basis, kind of trying to avoid certain games. But, there is, I think, a, for college football does sort of look at it as like, you make your plans around this, and so we're going to tell you in advance as we can when we're going to play. And so, and when we're going to have big games, so you can say like, 3 years in advance, you want to go, because I mean, like, obviously Notre Dame just played in Ireland, so it's like, they want to tell you that years out to be like, hey, if you're an alumni and you want to go, this is the year you're playing Navy in Dublin. So save your pennies, not that Notre Dame fans generally or alums generally have to save their pennies, but you know what I mean? It's like be prepared. We're going to have this big trip. Be prepared. We're going to play this big non-conference game. And I think that's sort of more to the point of feeling like these mega games they want to have scheduled 5-6 years in advance, and at least sometimes 10 years out, to say, prepare for this September, that this is going to be a game that we're going to play, and this is one you want to go to.
We got to take a quick break. Lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Stars with me right now. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right.
What's happening, John?
Right now I'm getting used to hearing my new liners because I think they sound terrible. Because I've got this new microphone. The microphone sounds amazing, but the way that I said the liners just sounds like I didn't put any power into them. So I'm trying not to be self-conscious of it right now.
So you're right back. I'll say like hearing your own voice is always weird. Like it just is.
And honestly, that's not even what bothers me, because I was very happy with the previous liners. I just think someone said it in the comments a lot, very, very well, I think, with this new microphone. It's like hearing yourself in 4K HD. And so I guess it's like a different level of that kind of thing. I don't know. I'll get used to it, I guess.
No, I know what you mean. I get it. I understand. Like, yeah, just it seems like even more detailed than usual, and it's almost like
exactly.
You're getting used to. No, I get where you're coming from there.
Other than that, I'm just hoping Indiana covers 28.5 or whatever it is this weekend.
I'm surprised that's all they're getting. What do
I
you
stopped
think
listening
it
to
would be?
myself.
28.5. That's all.
Is it 29.5, Jim, or what is it now? What did you say?
I heard someone say that, but I don't know that. I'll have to look.
Let me take a look. I saw it yesterday.
I would not take less than 35. I don't. There's a reason why I don't bet, because I lose. And figured that out. I've probably told this story about before, but I figured that out. Thankfully, at 13.
Oh, it's at 30 now. By the way, it's at 30.
Really?
At 30.
Yeah.
It should keep going higher. I mean, it's this. Oof. I feel like this could be bad. I mean, it's Ohio State. I don't know. I mean,
I think that they're. I believe that they're a better. Indiana's a better team this year.
Do you? Well, tell me more. We can talk about this.
We'll do it. We'll do a segment if you want.
Yeah, everybody has seen football practice, but no one is getting more reps. They are split it equally. But I'm going to tell you
now. He has named a starter. He just hasn't publicly named a starter.
Did it the same way he did it last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you who I think his quarterback is going. I've said the same thing, and I haven't switched.
Great. Let's go all IU football this segment. I'm up for it. I'm interested.
Here we go. Construction, now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Monday, 28th of August. Boy, I'm glad I'm not playing a high school football or even any kind of football anymore. This would be a hot day for us, but I think the weather's this weekend was incredible. We've had this 90-degree heat. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Stars with me right now. The heat has been unbearable. Then all of a sudden, that storm came through. Was that Friday night that rolled through? Buddy, it woke me up. Pow. But
we dodged it. We didn't catch any of that.
Oh, man, limbs down everywhere. throughout. Lost electric throughout the night. But Bill down in Southern Indiana asking, has anyone seen football practice and seen who is getting more reps at quarterback? Back before Indiana had said that they had decided on a starter, there had been equal reps. I have my guess that, or my determination that I made.
Let's hear it.
How long ago was that, John, that I said this?
I mean, it was a couple months ago that you made this prediction, I would say.
Oh, wasn't that far, was it?
I mean,
Anyway.
after spring practice, I believe.
Let's hear it. I'm intrigued.
I said Sorsby.
You think
Probably
Sorsby?
because everybody else is going the opposite direction. Partly because everybody keeps saying, well, you don't bring in somebody from Tennessee for him to. Well, nobody brought him in. He came in, first of all.
He had to make his own decision.
Yeah, he left the school. He was not going to get to play at Tennessee, so he was going to go elsewhere, and Indiana made sense. But that has nothing to do with, and I'm just guessing at this point. A big part of it. I'll be honest with you. It's all most of it is, but I'm just going with that. And I could be. I've got a 50-50 shot of being right. That's the good thing.
You can flip a coin. So, I mean, obviously it's weird, like, because I covered last year's team and then it's a totally different quarterback situation a year later, like everybody.
Okay. Did you hear this stat Don gave us? Not to interrupt you, but out of the top 50 portal players that are supposed to play, not at Indiana, the top 50 period, Indiana has 23 of them.
That's weird.
That's crazy.
Really, that's wild. I mean, I guess the thing is I mean, like, not that, certainly the portal has exaggerated this a lot. I mean, but I think, not being on the beat anymore and, getting some space and some distance to stand back and look at it. I mean, I have on many occasions written glowing stories about transfer portal guys or just transfer guys, before there was technically a portal, that, man, they did this, that, and other thing at this school. Like, think what he's going to do in Indiana. And it has not always gone that way. I mean, there's a reason. There are a lot more reasons why guys go to the portal, and they does not necessarily mean they were not going to play. But all the same, like in most cases, you're not leaving a situation you like. Certainly there can be NIL reasons or whatnot now that changes the dynamic a little bit. But obviously there are some legit guys in this group. I think Andre Carter certainly seems to be one that everybody's high on, that believes is going to make an impact. Marcus Burris on the other, also I think at that bull position. So it seems like they've got, I'm sorry, is he at end? Is Burris is at end? Not at bull, right? Okay. I'm just picking this up, man. I'm following my man Michael Nizolik's coverage and Zach Osterman's coverage. It's weird for me not to be covering this and trying to talk about it, but it does seem like there's a lot of guys that can make an impact. I mean, I think the entire cornerback room looks different. Some wide receivers, some I think there's the Christian Turner at running back. There's a lot of guys who have a chance to make an impact and change things. But I'm still kind of in we'll see mode because I saw a bunch of guys last year that I thought were going to make a big impact as portal guys and didn't make as big of an impact. And I also thought Connor Bazelak was going to be really good, and he was okay. I mean, he was okay when he was good, and when he lost Camper, I mean, that was a pretty significant, that was a blow, to him to really not have his top target because he really started relying on him. And then Matthews got hurt as well, and so like that obviously was a huge issue. And once he lost those two guys, he was very, very mortal as a passer at that point. So I'm very intrigued to see just what's going to happen, who's going to actually end up being impact players. I mean, I've the way they were talking about Miles Jackson, I thought he was like Lawrence Taylor, and I was impressed by what I saw, but I mean, he only made, he was okay. He only made so much of an impact, but he didn't really beat out Lance Bryant. And so, I think now he's behind at that bull spot. So again, what's going to actually turn out once they get on the field and actually start playing people and start playing Ohio States, where, like They don't need a lot of transfer guys. They've got a lot of 5 stars, that are coming off the bench. So, I'm going to be intrigued to see who is actually as good as they're being built as far as transfer guys. I mean, it does speak well that they're doing well in the portal, but I mean, I think you are also seeing the impact of the losses start to show up in the high school recruiting. It's getting tougher, I think, for him to recruit 4- and 5-year guys. When you're dragging a tough record, it's a lot easier when you're coming off, the Outback Bowl. It's that to get players and feel like you've got a lot of momentum than it is once you start losing games.
Yeah, and the better teams, that's not how they are building their teams. They're doing it exactly as you just said. They're with their 3- and 4-year guys that they're bringing in as freshmen, and that they are doing nothing but learning. And learn. Hell, they do nothing but learn for 2 years most of the time. But the schedule in Indiana's has. I just think Indiana is a better team this year overall. Not than Ohio State, but then that. I look at last year, and let's see what they end up 4 and 8 last year.
And at 3 and 9. Am I crazy?
I'm trying to remember.
They were 4 and 8, beat Michigan State, and then there are 3 non-conference games.
That's right. I forgot they beat Michigan State. It's been a while. College football is such this wild thing where you have there's so much space in between games. But yeah, so.
Yeah, last year, I'm trying to think of some games that they could have won had they just been a little bit better. If they had, which they are this year, if they had a little bit better line sooner, that win at Michigan State, I am still shocked over. I was so shocked, but that came after Rod Carey took over for a little bit to help with the offensive line. Wow, they made instant changes, and then you put Dexter Williams in, and they can win a game without throwing the damn ball. Right. They also kept their own defense off the field, and kept Michigan State's on the field longer with somewhat of a running game, which they have had none of in the last 2 years, or no protection in the last few years. This Indiana team, I can see, and I'm not saying this year, but going forward, because of dissolving the divisions, no more Big Ten East, this Indiana program should be able to fight to get to 6, 7, 8 wins a year. I mean, you don't have to play. You're not that you're not going to have to play tough games. You are. But let's say you play 4 really tough games. Okay, well, there's 4 losses. You schedule your 3 non-cons. You make them wins. And if you cannot find 3 people to beat in this conference now, then you've got other problems. But I think that this is going to be the best thing ever for Indiana as they go forward, getting out of the Big Ten East. And a little winning will solve a lot. It will encourage more transfers, and maybe try to start turning that clock back on the recruiting that Indiana's not doing so well of within the state right now.
Yeah, I mean, it could, but I mean, I think the one thing that you have to the other side of the Big Ten East was that every year you got to play Maryland and Rutgers, and in when Indiana has been good, that has been, when they were good in 2019 and 2020, those were gettable games. And last year they lost both of those. I mean, those obviously are the games that you look at and say they could have won if they had more direction earlier. Obviously, I think at that point is where really when you were breaking down as far as injuries were concerned. And they fired Hiller after the Michigan loss when they got just obliterated, with what was it, 7-8 sacks in that game. I mean, something crazy. They just got busted off the line and lose that 131-10. And that, Michigan could have made that a lot uglier if they wanted to. But then you go out and you get beat by Maryland by 5 and by Rutgers by 7, and those were winnable games. And so maybe you're in a different place. If you get those two, you could have got 6. But they obviously had to kind of recalibrate what they're doing. I think what Camper was it Cincinnati was the Camper injury, I think. That causes a reset. I mean, I can't remember where Matthews got hurt, but it might have been Nebraska in there someplace. I mean, so that requires you to kind of just reset your season, and you end up going with Dexter Williams toward the end of the game. Tuttle, I think, got hurt at Michigan too. And so, you just had to, totally reconsider what you were trying to do. That team that shows up in Michigan State seemed like it's a totally different team than you'd seen for the rest of the year. Took me a minute to remember that game. But Williams was phenomenal, and Lucas, as I recall, was phenomenal. And there's like a lot of big play stuff, but it was a different team. They were playing a totally different offense, and that was after they had tried to experimented with they threw Sorsby in one of those games. And so like I said, the one thing I'll say about playing in the Big Ten East is you have a couple. You could have a couple games when you could get right. There's going to be some more opportunity for them to get more of those sort of mid-level Big Ten West teams that are much more manageable than your Penn States, Ohio States, and Michigans. But you do add USC and UCLA to the mix, and you're not guaranteed to play Maryland and Rutgers every year. Those aren't going to always be on your schedule. So, I mean, you might end up with more winnable games, but you might end up with fewer games that would be gimmies for a good team. And so there is going to be a back and forth as far as that's concerned. It'll be helpful, but again, I mean, you have to start winning at all. That's the thing. And for as much as we talk about the schedule or whatever, you got to beat Maryland and Rutgers. When you can't beat Maryland and Rutgers, you're not getting up that hill. It doesn't really matter. You can't point to Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan and say, well, look, we had to play them. Beat Maryland and Rutgers. Beat Maryland
and your non-con games. You can't not only can you not lose a non-con game, your non-con games better not be 2-point games. You should be kicking the crap out of these guys.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. Western Kentucky's been a problem, and there's a reason why.
They had good coaches come through there.
They had just that phenomenal Houston Baptist group of guys that came through, and they were flinging it everywhere. Bailey Zapp a couple years ago, and I can't remember who the quarterback was last year now because it's been a while.
Bobby Petrino, you had Jeff Brom come through there as coaches as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's been a really good program for a while, and what they're doing now with just the really wide open spread up tempo is driving you crazy. I mean, they were, just a problem. Certainly I remember a couple of years ago down there, that game was just exhausting. And if Tywan Mullen wasn't a magician that day, they don't get out of there with a win. I mean, he was fantastic, and basically everybody else was dead. McFadden, I think, had a huge play too. I can't remember. He had one really big, impressive sack, but I mean, they were worn down, and those guys had to play phenomenal football. But yeah, no, you do. You have to. You can't be getting beat or challenged by mid majors, and you got to be able to beat Maryland and Rutgers. That should be easy. Again, right now they're just still in a position where it's what do you guys have? Where are you guys going? Are you going to have stability with your coaching staff? And so, that's really what it does when it comes to recruiting. I mean, there's a lot of pushing the rock up the hill, but it starts with they've got to win games like that. They've got to, beat your Marylands, your Rutgers, your Michigan States when you catch them down. Obviously, some years you get a Michigan State team you can't touch. I mean, when you weren't beating the Kenneth Walker team. Obviously, that group was nasty. But sometimes when you catch those guys when they're beatable, you got to get them. And so, for whatever complaining, I mean, again, life could get better, in a different wide open schedule with no divisions. But they're still going to have to win, the winnable games, and they got to be in position to do that. And, that means, I think, for Tom Allen, that means winning now. I mean, they've got to be able to win some games this year because, it's tough to have 3 bad ones in a row.
Absolutely, and winning now is the most important thing. Talking about the future doesn't do any, even next year doesn't do any good. But you mentioned something that is extraordinarily important. I think if Tom Allen is going to be here next year and after that is the coaching stability, especially at the coordinator position. You cannot have coordinators turning over every 1 to 2 years. That does not work. That gives you no stability. And I know that that's part of the reason why he wants to implement his own defense and make them anybody come in adjust to that. Well, that's fine, but it's offense, man. Offense is what is defense wins games. Yeah, I know, but Indiana have not had an offensive identity for too long. Well, ever since really Kalen DeBoer left. I mean, they tried to follow up with that, but it wasn't there.
Right. I mean, you know, I think it obviously says something. They were trying to maintain stability there by promoting Nick Sheridan, and it didn't work. Obviously, he had a tough deal, and certainly, I mean, Nick Sheridan's not a dummy. You know, he's not a complete idiot. He obviously went to, you know, followed, you know, DeBoer to Washington, and you know, they've got, you know, a top 15 team. Michael Penix is at worst a you know, dark horse Heisman candidate out there. You know, we've heard that before, certainly. But, you know, after last year, I mean, he was just phenomenal. They've got an All-American, you know, potential All-American wide receiver. You know, Washington is a team to watch out there in the Pac-12. You know, that team's legit. So, I mean,
they got that receiver that could be a Heisman. I mean, if he was at any other school, if he was at Ohio State, he would probably be a Heisman Trophy candidate. I'm talking about the receiver they have. That we talked with Kalen about when he was on with us a few weeks back. Guy's just faster than he's like Usain Bolt on a football field.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's terrible that right now both of us are trying to talk ourselves into remembering his name. That's bad. Now we're going to remember it like next week, and we'll never forget it because he'll be all over everywhere in a minute here. And right now we look like dummies because we're like
Pac-12 returning Pac-12 receiver of the year.
Yeah. We're just blanking on this because I mean, like I watched him a ton last year, but I was watching Michael mostly. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be really, really good. And so point of the matter, to get back to Sheridan, obviously, I mean, like he's not an idiot, but he did not have a particularly good year, and they had to make a move, you know, after 2021, you know, just basically he just wasn't effective enough, and they had to make a decision there. And obviously when DeBoer gets the kind of money he got to be a head coach and then to get to Washington, obviously you got to go jump at that when you have the opportunity. But yeah, I mean, it's not an easy thing. And so a lot's riding on Walt Bell. A lot was riding on Walt Bell last year. Lots riding this year. Obviously he has a year where he's been around, but you know, I mean, he'll have used, you know, whoever starts this game will be his fourth starting quarterback. So that's, you know, there you go.
That's another thing.
He's
now part of that was, I think most of that has to do with the lack of protection, though, wouldn't you say?
Sure. No, 100%. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying that it was Walt's decision to play around with four quarterbacks. I mean, it certainly was. You know, Bazelak got hurt. Tuttle got crushed. You know, I mean, Tuttle's injury was nasty. You're like, oh God, that's brutal. And he got hurt twice. He came back and he got hurt again.
Poor guy. You got to feel bad for him.
Sure, no, absolutely. Now he's going to go to Michigan, hand the ball off, get a whole bunch of NIL money, and maybe play in a title game. So, you know, like, yes, you do, because I mean, took him how long to actually get to play. And I thought he was going to go somewhere where he was going to play. So I was a little bit surprised that he picked Michigan, where he probably won't.
Although he will damn sure get protected, because someone just Taterology put up a comment on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Maybe how you could get Michigan to loan them their backups. I've heard several pundits say that Michigan's second string might be a top 4 O-line in the Big Ten.
Alas, it does not work that way. You cannot loan somebody your second unit offensive line, or Indiana would have been in the market for that many, many years for that. So yeah, no, it is. That's, yeah. I mean, they need this group to block. I mean, it certainly was better at the end of last year under Rod Carey. Is it going to be better with the guy they got from Wisconsin? You know, you have to hope so, but you know, it's still not a group that, I mean, I'm sure they don't have anybody that's preseason All Big Ten. You know, on that group, I can't imagine they do. Maybe Bedford. You know, I thought you saw some good things from Khalil Benson toward the end of last year. You know, so that group needs to step up, and you know, like you're going to need to see some stuff that you haven't necessarily seen from them.
That's an issue for Indiana. They're not getting guys that are not that they've been the team that has put 5 or 6 guys in the NFL, but a couple. They're not putting anybody in the NFL. That means they don't have the talent at all.
Obviously this group couldn't play any defense at all, but I mean, a big reason why Kevin Wilson had success on offense is he got 2 NFL caliber offensive linemen, in Spriggs and Feeney, and that made those offenses just fantastic. I mean, that's why, I mean, those, again, if they could defend anybody, if that group could tackle it all, they would have been an 8-9 win team, at least. Because I mean, that those offenses with Sudfeld and Coleman and Latimer and, all of those guys were fantastic. And so, if they could have put together a defense with that offense, that would be great. But the biggest reason why it started with Romo and Dempsey. That's right. Thanks, Tanis. We feel really dumb right now because I'm sure, again, in a week, we're going to feel like total idiots that we didn't remember that guy because he's going to be an All-American in the whole bit. But yeah, I mean, again, having 2 anchors at offensive line that were legit went a long way. He loved them when they got him. I remember when they got Spriggs and Feeney, they turned Spriggs was a tight end. And they were like, he's like, this guy's going to play left tackle. He's going to start for me as a freshman. He's going to be awesome. Like Wilson was all about him. And so it's just, they need guys like that. It's not easy to do. It's easier said than done. They need really good athletes who are really long and really big, and they need to be able to block. And so I have a hard time getting those guys.
What's up next for you, my friend?
Man, not a lot. Still got another month before season starts. So I'm going to just be checking out FIBA, seeing how.
So do you miss, Coach? Do you miss covering college, or do you? I know everyone prefers pros generally because you get more access. You get to do more. The storylines are, I guess, a little more compelling because you can create more.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, on a whole, I don't, because I'm enjoying covering this group, and I really like the access. I like being able to talk to these guys because they're adults. It's helpful. Like you get to just go to, just go to pregame locker room, and even if you don't get anything, you get to have conversations, and so you get to know guys. And so, like, when I feel like. And they see you, they know you. I mean, like I have a good sense of Tyrese Halliburton's story, personality, everything. Maxine is okay. She's outside. I actually got to go let her in as soon as we're done with this, but she's good. I promise. Thanks for asking. But yeah, anyway, so no, I mean, you get to know guys. I mean, when a season starts and you're not covering it, you miss it. Like no matter what you are, like obviously it's nice to have some time to chill out, but going into week 1 of college football, I feel weird that I will not be at a stadium on Saturday. That's going to be strange. I'll have other, again, I'll probably sit around, watch football, stuff like that, but it's going to be weird not being, not watching Ohio State, Indiana. So,
well, at least you'll get to watch it, enjoy it without having to worry about working.
There's that. I won't have to do anything, and that will be nice. So.
Dustin, we appreciate you, brother, so much. Yeah. Look forward to seeing you next week.
For sure.
Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Make sure you're giving him a follow and following his content. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, high atop the 18th fairway. Right after this,
we'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
I guess afterwards, John, just listen to it back and see if everything's the same volume.
What do you mean?
You sound like you may be louder than like that commercial when I heard that commercial come in.
Oh, well, I know the commercial. I know what you're talking about there. That commercial specifically might be a little bit quieter, and I can boost that one.
Gotcha.
But yes, it is a little quieter. That one is. I am going to revoice those because the liners, just because those sound so bad. And I'm not really the kind of person who's very conscious of how they sound.
They don't sound bad. I don't know what you mean. I would just check
the old ones.
Volume.
You could feel like the power in them, if that makes sense. And these just sound like, oh my god, man, I'm talking to a microphone.
You probably have too much gain, not enough bass.
Actually, that's probably a good point. I don't know what my bass level's at.
I see. I don't have. Well, I mean, I guess I could probably go in someplace and, but I just going through this Behringer box.
I need to probably because I know my gain is up fairly
Hey,
high.
how is what's the podcast called that you're doing?
Oh, it's called Out of Touch.
Out of Touch. Where do you post that on? Are you posting that on?
Me. That's just.
But you're not posting
YouTube.
it. Oh, okay. You have a YouTube. I didn't know that.
Excuse me.
Squeeze me.
By the way, we do have you will have one more break to hit because we go till 10.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Well, that's why I thought it was. That's why I thought it was a 10 o'clock break.
I figured. I was like, he just doesn't know when he's supposed to break right now.
10. Oh, I was past it. 10.
It's okay though. It's okay.
I was thinking 10. I had 10 in my head. That's why. Even I've got it written down correctly. Gritty Chat Beer Czar. You should post it on my YouTube channel too.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Why?
Because that takes away from me. I'm using this to build my own stuff.
Well, I mean, it would just give you introduction to more, or
I mean, it would give me a bigger audience, but then it's not really my content.
But there's got to be a way you can cross it over or something.
If there's a way, I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
All righty, here we go.
What do we?
Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Indy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here with you on this Monday. Thanks a lot for joining us. Jim Coyle along for the ride. John, the producer, keeping us between the white lines, and we appreciate having you guys with us. Fine folks like Fozan, who is tuning in all the way from Amman, Jordan, and everybody else from wherever you guys are, whether you're listening on radio on Always the Right Call, the Ref 97.7 ESPN in Evansville, or 1230 AM 104.7 FM WJOB, the voice of the region. Crossover in Fort Wayne at 1380 The Fan, Fort Wayne Sports Station, or down in Marengo on 89.9 WBRO. As well, elsewhere, maybe you're on YouTube. If you are, make sure you hit the subscribe button and like button as well. We appreciate that, and it's a big help. So thanks a lot. John, I started laughing as I heard the new spot for
the Chop Shop.
Yeah, we're going to have to change the music on that one.
No, we were using the same. That was the same music we were using for BB's Market.
It can't be. That sounded so. I started laughing because, the different Ken Burns documentaries he's done. All baseball. The first one was Civil War, of course, but he's done baseball, and he did one for country music, which was awesome too. But that definitely reminded me of the first episode of that documentary. And that's what I was laughing, because I'm like, man, that reminds me of the first episode, and the first episode covered the 40s. I just thought it was funny. But yeah, we'll check that. He does such a great job on everything.
Things,
yeah. But I found it funny. I don't want to forget, Pete pointing out, we've got to get everybody jacked up and lined up for the college pick'em. It's week 1. The entrees are over, so it's time to sign up. Cost you nothing. ESPN.com. What are you going into the fantasy thing? I haven't done it yet.
You go on.
You know what?
Make sure you go to ESPN's fantasy page, and you're going to want to click on the college pick'em section, and you're
All right,
gonna
you know
want
what?
to join.
Hold on. I'm going to
Go
do it
ahead.
right now. You tell me
Okay.
how to do it. I'm at ESPN.com right now.
Look for their fantasy page.
I see
for
it.
Fantasy sports.
I see
You're
it.
going to want to click on the college football pick'em section.
I see that. Slide right
There you
down.
go.
There it is. About 7
After
down.
that, well, first of all, are you signed in? Do you have an account, Jimbo?
I have an account. I'm not sure that I'm signed in
So
at the
if you
moment.
won't be able to do the rest of it, I'm not sure unless you have your account logged in. But
Well, I must be. All right. So it comes up next thing. It says standard, spread, or confidence. Pick
that'll be
college
up
football
for
winners
we don't have that information, Pete. If you want to share that with us, you're more than welcome to. I do believe it's just standard. I could be wrong though.
No, this is
either way. For those who haven't and know where,
all right. So I hit that.
Group,
So
you want to join the group, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, with the password B-Town 2023 with a capital B, all lowercase town. And it's all one. There's nothing separated. It's all one word. B-Town 2023.
Why don't they put these in alphabetical order? That is just dumber than. They're not in alphabetical order.
Well, that's what happens when you're dealing with.
Oh, there's a search group. There's a
guess.
search group.
There you go. Jim's figuring it out on the fly.
Is that one word?
It is one word. B-Town 2023.
No, not. I meant the.
No, the Indiana Sports Beat Radio is all. It's separated.
That's important information to have. As I go through here and on the fly. Whoops. Go on the fly and do it. There it is. All right. It says access is private. We got to make that public. Why not just let anybody in?
Because if you're giving something away, then the person, you have to know how to contact the person. And if somebody who knows from your show,
if they don't want to be contacted, they don't get the prize.
See, Pete, it's just Jim's way in trying to figure out how if he wants somebody who's not affiliated to win, so he doesn't have to give them.
That's totally not true. I'm saying let anybody in. Everybody can let everybody in. All right, so I'm at the group directory. It says game scoring type, access, group type, blocked, all that blah blah. Am I in?
If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. That's all I can say. And right now, I'm out.
Oh, it says make picks. Jim's picks. All right, week 1.
So he is in.
Oh yeah. All right, I'm in. First one, and the first one that popped up, Purdue and Fresno State.
What are you taking? Are you going to do your picks on the air?
Right now, I'm not.
Okay.
But I will say that in that game, is this against the spread? Because I don't see a spread.
It must be standard if it's not showing the spread.
Well, but we can decide how we're going to do it.
Pete's already set it up, though. If it's set up a certain way, then it's already rolling. He can't change it. It's kind of like when you do your March Madness bracket. If the games have already started, you can't change it.
Yeah. Let's see. Caleb said, why punish kids that had nothing to do with what went on at Arizona State under the previous coach? Man, that's how it's always been, unfortunately. Yeah, that always happens. Well, look at Zion. Nothing will ever happen to Duke. Because it's Duke. Zion cheated his aspirin bottle off. He got paid. Baby. So, yeah, that's just jumping around. Sorry to jump in on that, but yeah, I will. If this was straight up, this is going to be a little easier. Purdue, I'll take that. We'll have to get Pete to confirm. Is this just a standard pick, not against the spread? I think you should do it against the spread, though. But is it too late? But get signed up. We'll do a prize each week. if we get enough people signed up weekly, but we'll definitely do one for the end of the season. Pete's getting all that stuff together. Been a little slow. I owe Gary McDaniel I'm going to give him a couple things just because he won the March Madness. I have forgotten. I've got to go pick that stuff up, and I keep forgetting to get it. Oh, I was gone a lot. So how is everybody excited this week? It's the week of college football, the week of really the sports season gets started, but it doesn't seem like it for some reason to me. I mean, usually I don't know if it's week 0. I don't think it's that. It just doesn't feel like it's the start of the season yet. Maybe after that first game happens and get out to the stadium, because it's going to be a big one. Man, oh man. And if you are going to the game, it's a 3:30 game. Normally I would get there personally. I get there 2 to 3 hours before, because just to not deal with all the stuff, and so I can take my stuff up to the press box and settle in. This one's probably going to be 5 hours. I'm not dealing with all that traffic. And there are going to be so many more people that are coming over from Ohio State and even more people from Indiana. I mean, it's going to be a sellout. So whatever kind of crowd you have during a sellout of Memorial Stadium, it's, 4 times the size of Simon Scott Assembly Hall? What's 4 times 17 real quick? I'm not that good at math.
It's not quite 4 times. It's a little over 3 times the size of Assembly Hall.
Yeah, 17 times 4 is 68,000. So there you go. You're exactly right. John is on the ball with the math. You're a mathematician.
My wife's a math teacher for 5th graders, if that counts for anything.
Does that make you smarter than a 5th grader?
You know, I think this day and age, I'm not. I don't think I'm smarter than a 5th grader. And also, my brain finally reached its final stage. I don't think you've heard before, when you turn 26, that's when your brain becomes fully developed, right? So I'm as smart as I'll ever be now.
Oh, I think I've lost some.
Well, that's the point. Yeah. Once you peak, you can only go down.
Point? Well, why do you have to peak? I don't want to peak yet. It's Sean said on the hit up the Andy Moore Honda hotline, says, when Don retires, imagine a book authorized by him of the things he saw and heard during his time at IU. I don't read books, but I would that. Yeah, that would be nothing compared to what I think a couple of former SIDs could write, which they don't do that. Sports information directors, they're very good about maintaining the code of what happens in-house stays in-house. And I agree with that, because it's within the realm of, knowledge, nothing.
They have a privilege that nobody else has.
Yes, and they respect that privilege. I mean, let me tell you, you want one of the greatest books ever? Oh, well, Kit Klingelhofer was the SID under Bill Mallory and Bob Knight. Bill Mallory was great because he had all these great stories of coaching under Woody Hayes that Kit heard, over and over for years and got to hear. And then he was the SID for Bob Knight. So you think that he doesn't know where bodies are buried? Oh, yeah. But they are kind enough and principled enough to maintain that respect, and I'm glad to see it. Brady, how are you doing today, brother? Hope you had a good one. Yeah, he was talking about when Don was on, the GOAT. Brody. That is Brady. I was going to say, I thought it was Brady.
Yep.
I thought it was, but all of a sudden I can't see. I thought it was, but he's very visible on social media. Big IU fan, huge IU fan. I think still might be a student at IU. But how's everybody else doing? Brian, Andrew, Pete, Ross, Fred. Hope you guys are having a great day. Is it time to break? Is that what you're telling me, John Boy?
Yep.
All right. we've got to take another break. We'll be back to talk about more week 1 of college football coming up right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. I'm glad you mentioned the gain-based thing. I think that might be the exact problem.
What's that?
That I just don't have enough bass in the microphone.
Or is there any kind of not soft but subtle music or something you could put behind it? White noise.
That's not a bad idea either. I may fool around with that too. That's not a bad idea.
Something that you not enough that it gets your attention, but it's just there to take away the deadness.
Mm-hmm. I'll look into both if I can't figure out the microphone problem.
Man, I didn't see I missed a lot of these comments, but it's hard to see them all when Daggone it. John, I missed him. Southern Brown County.
By the way, people who are asking, the group name is Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and the password is B-Town 2023 in a capital B, all one word. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is separate, though. It's not one word. Oh, by the way, while we're talking about the re-recordings and stuff, if you can, you don't need to re-record the whole Southern Stone commercial, but you do need to just record something of you saying, well, actually, I don't know if I have the separated files.
Well, what did I do?
If you can, so you never made a new Southern Stone one. I was going to say the other one's fine if you want to just re-record it.
No.
But the last part of it has to be switched to say, instead of Endeavor Hospitality, you can say Wow Food Group. That's the issue with the Southern Stone one. That's the only problem with the commercial.
What's it say at the end?
It just says
part of
Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Network or something.
I'll try to record that and send it to you to see if it works. If it with the music, it might.
Excuse me.
All right, ESPN. I know it. ESPN. Fantasy.
All right. 30.
Was it under college football?
Yes, I believe so. Here we go.
Club at Eagle Point students can play for the rest of 2023 for just $299. That's right, play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. It's August 28th. Man, we are getting close to the Labor Day weekend and week 1 of college football. Speaking of college football, you can join our ESPN or our college pick'ems, weekly college pick'ems via the ESPN fantasy tab. Just go to ESPN. And if you don't have an account, you're going to have to open that, of course. Open up yourself an account and go to the fantasy. The group is, I had it all typed out and it left me. The group is Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And the password is B-Town 2023. Very easy. You can go ahead and make your picks for the week. Each weekly winner will get
some merchandise, ISB merchandise, and then we'll do a winner. And then bowl games. We'll just do it all. Why not do everything? Right? I like how that sounds. Let's see. There we go. Indiana Sports Beat Radio is the group. B-Town 2023 is the password. I'm already in. I wish Pete was on with us to tell us whether or not these are supposed to be straight up picks. Thank you, Fred. Yep, Don is back with us. He'll be with us each and every Monday now throughout the end of basketball season through next April. So make sure you're here each Monday for that. Then, of course, as the season gets going, we'll have more different guests in addition to our regularly scheduled weekly guests, people like Chronic Hoosier and the great Rick Bozich, Hall of Fame writer from the USBA, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and BTN Network, as he is their basketball guru, and we are very fortunate to have him, along with our guests throughout the week, like Mike Neislick, B-Town's or Bloomington Herald Times beat writer for IU. And I have to give Gannett credit because Gannett owns the Herald Times now. It was family owned forever until they took it over a few years ago. And for them to keep a writer, an IU writer, is surprising, but very, very appreciated and needed. Because Bloomington's an odd market. I'm going to have to tell you, from a media standpoint. We're on radio in multiple cities around the state, but not in Bloomington, and have tried to get on here, but to no avail. But I will also say that I believe Bloomington is the only Big Ten city that does not have a dedicated sports radio station, much less a dedicated local sports show. It is surprising, but we appreciate all the great folks from Bloomington that take in Indiana Sports Beat Radio, no matter how you can find it. We appreciate you greatly. Tomorrow on the program, Chronic Hoosier and Mike DeCourcy will be joining us, along with Mike Neislick, who I just spoke of, I use beat writer for the Bloomington Herald, because there are a ton of things to talk about in regards to IU, especially with basketball visits coming. Indiana has a ton, as a matter of fact. Let me get back to that. A trio of Montverde visitors alone coming to Indiana. Indiana is really, really doing well. Jalen Harrelson is going to be visiting Auburn. That's September 30th. He is currently ranked the number 11th prospect in the Rivals 150. Of course, the 2025 point guard, 6'7", now at La Lumiere, which will make him ineligible for Mr. Basketball. That should make Prince Sisley happy. Opens up gets somebody out of the way. Liam McNeely, Derek Queen, and Curtis Gibbons, all from Montverde, and all visiting Indiana on September 8th. That's this weekend, people. Liam McNeely, of course, is a 6'8" shooting forward, originally from Texas, now down at Montverde Academy. You've got Derek Queen, who is 6'10" now, 245. He's already got the beef on. Indiana currently was 0 commitments in the 2024 class. And there's also Curtis Givens coming up. He's a 4-star, 6'3" point guard. Mike Woodson will have all 3 on campus September 8th, as I said. 3 of the top prospects in the country. Now, Indiana has shown the Montverde kids, things go well when you go to Indiana. They've already had one that was a first-round draft pick, and he was not guaranteed to be a first-round draft pick when he arrived. But those 3 visits are coming up, but that's not all. Indiana has more coming as well. 2025 star Kyan Anthony, per Adam Zagoria. He's a 2025, like I said, 4-star. Son of NBA star Carmelo Anthony intends to visit Indiana. He's a 6'4" point guard from Middle Village, New York. Plays at Long Island Lutheran. And Mike Woodson probably has a little bit of a good relationship there. Anthony said he intends to visit Florida State, Syracuse, and Michigan. He'll also visit Florida. He'll visit Florida State October 13th and 14th. No other dates have been set yet. Indiana extended a scholarship offer to Kyan earlier this year. Back in May, the confident shooter holds interest from multiple programs and has been making waves of his own despite his family name for his stellar play in multiple settings. PerspectiveInsight.com said back in May that Anthony would have no shortage of suitors at the next level and caught up with him after the second live season, where he said, I'm a 3-level scorer that can create my own shot from anywhere on the floor. I can space the court. I'm a knockdown shooter and reliable finisher, a solid off-ball defender, and an improving on-ball defender. Well, that's a pretty good description of yourself. He plays for Team Milo, of course. Of course, he'll be getting a lot of attention from Maryland, I'm sure, as well. But a lot of action for Indiana basketball. And that's not all either, as another 2025 4-star is receiving interest from Indiana. Nate Ament. He's going to tour Duke, Virginia, and Iowa this month. Duke just getting involved, LSU just getting involved, Indiana just getting involved as well. The Warrington, Virginia product said that I've been talking to Indiana for a while now. Coach Woodson is great. He's been all over being an NBA guy. He knows a lot about basketball. That's a great thing to have in a head coach. So, a lot of action. Mike Woodson's got a lot of irons in the fire for IU basketball. 0 commitments for the 2024 class right now, though. Will that change? Yeah. When? That I can't answer. Maybe after September 8th. That could very possibly change after September 8th. Those guys are seniors, and I know that they would like to get it over as soon as possible just because you don't want to deal with that stuff. Thank you, Fred. We appreciate you. They want to get that out of the way, not be distracted because they want to focus on their season and not be dealing with it after the season. But some have started to put it off more because they have become more sought. It's well, they could drive up a bargain now. They see if they most of them, of course, it could work the opposite way. The value with anything can go up or go down, but now they have reason. Some of them to wait. Better offers might come along. I may be able to work this for more money. Hey, they're going to give me X. What can you give me? And that is exactly what they can do. Great fun show today. Cannot thank the Golden One, Don Fischer, enough as he begins his. I don't even know, man, how many years Don's been coming on with us now. I think this is our sixth season that we've had Don. So grateful for that. Of course, grateful to Dustin Dopirak. Grateful to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you all, we have no reason to be here, and we appreciate you immensely. We're back tomorrow to do this all again when Mike DeCourcy joins us, Chronic Hoosier, and Michael Dexlake from the Bloomington Herald Times. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.